Okay, so you are absolutely dialed in. You've got your routine down. You're hitting PBs and all the data. It says your training load is like perfect for peak performance. But maybe there's this quiet alarm bell going off. Your period. It used to be regular, right? And now it's just gone.
Yeah, and maybe you've even sort of normalized it in your head, or it's just a sign you're training super hard,
That's
that only
abnormal.
like recreational athletes get periods. That could not be more wrong. Seriously, that missing period, it's your body's biggest warning signal, a non-negotiable red flag that something systemic is going wrong.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a really necessary deep look at exercise-induced amenorrhea, or EIA. And our sources are crystal clear on this. It's not just some small reproductive issue. It's the visible part, the tip, really, of a much bigger and frankly much more dangerous syndrome called RADS.
Right. Relative energy deficiency in sport. And our mission today in this deep dive is really to unpack that whole syndrome. But we want to explain the actual mechanism, like how a calorie deficit literally shuts down parts of your brain's function. We need to detail the honestly devastating long-term effects and lay out the necessary, sometimes really scary steps for recovery. And this is crucial information if you're a woman who exercises regularly. Doesn't matter if you're elite or just dedicated.
Let's just start with the scale of this, because honestly, it's shocking. EIA hits somewhere between 5 and 25% of female athletes. Think about that. In some groups, maybe up to 1 in 4 women are dealing with this.
Right.
It's especially high in sports needing huge endurance, like marathon running. And also those focused on aesthetics, gymnastics, ballet, figure skating, that kind of thing.
Okay, so let's get our terms straight first. Amenorrhea just means your period is absent. What we're usually talking about here is secondary amenorrhea, meaning you just have regular periods and then they just stopped for 3 months or more consecutively.
Right. And the common idea is just, oh, you ran too much or you lifted too heavy. But that's really simplifying it, isn't it? The core problem, as, all our sources emphasize, isn't the exercise itself. It's the energy balance that results from it.
Precisely. Your body needs a certain amount of energy calories just to cover its basic costs. And those costs are, well, twofold. First, your basal metabolic rate, your BMR. That's just the energy to keep you alive, right? Heart beating, breathing, brain ticking over. Second, you need energy for all your daily activities plus your intense training. So when the energy coming in consistently doesn't match what's going out, you end up in this chronic energy deficit.
And when the body sees that deficit day after day, it flips a switch, basically, survival mode.
It absolutely does. It starts conserving resources, it triages functions, it keeps the absolute essentials running, brain, heart, but then it shuts down what it sees as non-essential. And what's the top of that list? Reproduction. Losing your period is your body's protective mechanism screaming, look, we don't have enough resources for basic survival right now, let alone supporting a pregnancy.
Okay, let's unpack the hormones here, because this is where you really see how the body tries to protect itself. It's like a chain reaction starting in the brain. But I'll be honest, the terms GnRH, LH, they sound pretty technical. Can you maybe walk us through it with, like, an analogy?
Sure, absolutely. Think of your whole reproductive system like maybe a power grid, or even like an old phone system. The hypothalamus in your brain, that's the central switchboard, and it sends out the main signal, GnRH. But this energy deficit, it basically tells the operator at the switchboard, hey, power crisis, cut the non-essential lines immediately.
Okay, so that GnRH signal, the main pulse, it gets weaker or just stops.
Pretty much, yeah. It becomes less frequent, weaker pulses. And that weak signal means the next station down the line, the pituitary gland, it doesn't get the message properly. So it doesn't release enough of the hormones that actually run the cycle, FSH and LH. If you think of FSH and LH as like the repair crew that builds the uterine lining and triggers ovulation, well, they never get the dispatch call.
And without that FSH-LH crew showing up, the ovaries just stay quiet. They don't produce estrogen.
Exactly. That's the key result. Hypoestrogenism. Chronically low estrogen. And that leads to what we call functional hypothalamic amenorrhea. And here's the really crucial thing everyone needs to grasp. Estrogen does way, way more than just manage your period.
Right. We're not just talking fertility here. Low estrogen messes with your bone health, your heart health, metabolism, even brain function and mood, your immune system too.
All of it. The missing period isn't just an inconvenience. It's a huge warning sign that your body is failing to protect multiple really vital systems.
So if the period is the tip of the iceberg, we absolutely have to talk about what's underneath, this RADS concept. For years, the focus was on the female athlete triad, right? But that changed.
Yeah, in 2014, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, they broadened it out because the impact is just so much wider than those original 3 things.
The triad was low energy, period loss, and low bone density. But REDS, our sources list, what, 8 different physiological systems that get impaired by this chronic energy deficit? We probably need to spend a minute here because this really shows the true scope of the danger.
Let's hit a few that maybe aren't as obvious. We've mentioned reproductive and skeletal, obviously, but think about the metabolic system. Athletes with REDS often find their metabolism slows right down, or they have trouble regulating their temperature. That feeling of being cold all the time, especially cold hands and feet. People often brush it off as being lean or something, but actually, it's your body desperately trying to conserve heat because it literally doesn't have the energy budget to keep the furnace running properly.
Wow, okay. That totally reframes those kinds of symptoms, and the immune system takes a hit too.
Oh, big time. Chronic energy deficit basically leaves you immunocompromised. You might find you catch every single bug going around, or you get recurring infections, or even small cuts and scrapes just seem to take forever to heal.
Mm.
Your body just doesn't have the resources for defense and repair.
And the cardiovascular system. This sounds serious. It can actually be impaired.
Yeah, potentially leading to things like unusually slow heart rates, low blood pressure, or even abnormal heart rhythms in some cases. The energy needed just for normal heart function is being rationed out.
Jeez.
And then you see impacts on the gastrointestinal system, things like constipation, bloating, just sluggish digestion, and significant psychological effects too.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression, that feeling of brain fog, real trouble concentrating. It truly is a whole body shutdown, all stemming from that one fundamental imbalance, not enough energy.
What's really sneaky, I think, is how many of these signs, the fatigue, the slow healing, feeling cold, they get twisted in athletic culture, don't they? Like they're badges of honor for training hard. You think you're being dedicated, but really your body is just waving a huge white flag.
Which brings us neatly to probably the most critical and potentially irreversible long-term consequence: bone destruction. Even if you're an athlete doing tons of weight-bearing exercise, which should build bone, if you're amenorrheic, you are 2 to 4 times more likely to get a stress fracture.
Wait, hang on. I need to push back on that a bit. If I'm running marathons or lifting heavy weights, those are mechanical stresses, right? They're supposed to be good for bone density. How does just the lack of estrogen completely wipe out that benefit? That seems, yeah, counterintuitive.
It does seem that way, but it's because the physical stress is only half the story. You need the right hormonal environment. You need that estrogen for the repair process to actually happen effectively. Let's use that bone bank account analogy again. Your bones are always remodeling, right? Constant cycle of deposits, building new bone, and withdrawals, removing old bone.
Okay, so normally with enough estrogen.
With enough estrogen, the building part happened faster than the withdrawals. So you're building a stronger balance over time, healthy bones. But when you're amenorrheic, that low estrogen essentially tells the bone bank, stop accepting deposits. Full stop. The mechanical stress from your running or lifting, that still causes tiny bits of damage, microscopic withdrawals. But the repair mechanism, the deposit process, it's shut down.
So withdrawals keep happening, deposits stop, and the bone just gets weaker and weaker until, snap, the stress fracture.
Exactly that. The damage outpaces the repair because the hormonal support isn't there. And that leads to fractures, often needing significant time off.
And this is the part that's genuinely terrifying. The damage can be permanent. If you lose bone density during your teens or 20s, that absolutely critical window for building peak bone mass, you might never fully get it back, even if your period eventually returns.
We are literally seeing women in their late 20s, early 30s with bone density scans that look like they belong to someone who's 60. Osteopenia, even osteoporosis, it sets them up for a lifetime of increased fracture risk.
Yeah.
It's a preventable tragedy, honestly, and it demands immediate action if suspected.
Okay, so action starts with knowing the risks. For everyone listening, let's maybe consolidate the red flags. What should you be watching out for?
Well, the high-risk groups are pretty clear. Anyone in endurance sports, aesthetic sports like dance or gymnastics, or weight class sports where making weight is a pressure. Individual factors often include starting really intense training very young, maybe ramping up volume or intensity too quickly without adjusting fuel, and sometimes personality traits play a role too: perfectionism, maybe obsessive tendencies around food or exercise.
Right. Now, let's list those warning signs clearly. First up, menstrual red flags. Your period stops completely for 3+ months, or your cycles become really irregular, consistently longer than, say, 35 or 40 days apart, or maybe your periods just get super light, very short.
Then, the physical red flags. That constant crushing fatigue that sleep doesn't seem to fix, always feeling cold when others aren't, noticing more hair shedding, your hair thinning out, and crucially, Frequent injuries, especially stress fractures, repeating, or just generally slow healing from anything.
Okay. Third, performance red flags. This one's tricky because you might be training more, but your performance is actually going down. You feel weaker, maybe your endurance drops off, and recovery just takes ages. What used to take a day now takes several.
Yeah. And finally, don't ignore the psychological red flags. Finding yourself preoccupied with food, weight, or body image. Feeling really anxious about missing a workout, or experiencing significant mood swings, depression, or just feeling flat a lot of the time. If you're ticking several boxes across these categories, you really need to get it checked out
Mm-hmm.
urgently.
So, first step for recovery.
Yeah,
See a doctor, right? But one who actually understands REDS to rule out other things like thyroid issues or PCOS.
absolutely essential. Get a proper diagnosis. Once it's confirmed as functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, the treatment is straightforward but tough. It's all about restoring energy balance.
Which means either eating more, exercising less, or usually a combination of both. And because this often involves such a huge mental shift, the sources really stress needing a team, approach a doctor, a registered dietitian who gets sports nutrition, and crucially, a mental health professional.
Let's get specific on the nutrition part.
Yeah.
The goal is simple. Create an energy surplus. Give your body more fuel than it's currently burning. Research points to needing at least an extra 300 to 600 calories per day, minimum, on top of what you're eating now, just to get the hormonal systems to wake up again.
Okay, practically speaking, what does that look like? Eating 3 solid meals, plus maybe 2 or 3 planned snacks every day. Not letting yourself go more than, 3-4 hours without eating?
Exactly, consistent fueling. And really importantly for hormones, don't fear fat. Healthy fats are essential building blocks. You need amphora fats making up about 25 to 35% of your total calories. Think avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish, that kind of stuff.
And micronutrients matter too, right? Calcium, vitamin D for bones.
Non-negotiable. Aim for 1,200, 1,500 milligrams of calcium daily, definitely paired with enough vitamin D for absorption. Iron is often depleted too, so check that. Zinc, B vitamins, omega-3s, they all play roles in rebuilding those pathways and supporting immune function.
Okay, now the really tough part for most athletes, exercise modification. The message seems pretty blunt here. You cannot exercise your way out of this problem.
It's often the biggest hurdle, mentally. But it's absolutely mandatory for recovery. In that acute phase, the first 1 to 3 months, usually you typically need to cut your overall training volume significantly. We're talking maybe 25 to 50% reduction. That often means cutting out high-intensity interval work entirely or drastically reducing it and making sure you have at least 2, maybe 3 full rest days every single week. For a dedicated athlete, being told to deliberately cut back training by half, it can feel like career suicide.
Yeah, it must feel terrifying, but you have to reframe it, don't you? Continuing to push hard when your body's already running on empty isn't building fitness, it's actively causing damage. Taking maybe 3 months to deliberately reduce volume, focus on fueling properly, that's actually an investment in your future health and athletic longevity. It prevents that season-ending injury down the road.
And manage expectations on the timeline. This isn't a 2-week fix. Typical recovery to get a regular cycle back, it's often 6 to 12 months, though you usually start feeling better sooner. Maybe improved mood, warmer hands and feet, better sleep. Those positive signs often show up in the first 3 months or so. It just takes time for the body to feel safe and trust that resources are consistently available again before it restarts the reproductive system.
Okay, let's tackle the huge misconception we hear all the time. Can taking the birth control pill fix exercise-induced amenorrhea?
Right. And the answer, based on everything we're seeing in the research, it's a clear and really critical no.
Because the pill gives you synthetic hormones, right? And that causes a withdrawal bleed, which looks like a period. But you're not actually ovulating, and the root cause, that energy deficit, it's still there, completely unaddressed. It just masks the problem.
Exactly. It masks the symptom, giving this false sense of security, this illusion of health. And worse, maybe it prevents you from making the real changes needed, increasing food intake, reducing training load. Plus, there's evidence suggesting those synthetic hormones might not offer the same bone protection as your body's own natural estrogen, produced when you're healthy and energy replete. The only actual fix for functional hypothalamic amenorrhea is restoring that energy balance. Period.
Which loops right back to why the mental health support is so crucial. Often, the behaviors that lead to REDS, the undereating, the overexercising, they're symptoms, aren't they? Symptoms of deeper issues like body image struggles, anxiety, maybe tying all self-worth to performance or a number on the scale.
Absolutely. Therapy is essential for tackling those distorted thoughts head on. Challenging beliefs like, all gain too much weight or more training always equals better results. It helps athletes develop a healthier relationship with food and their bodies, and maybe start to redefine their identity beyond just their athletic achievements. That mental piece is just as vital as the nutrition plan for making recovery stick.
So if we pull this all together, connecting back, the big goal should always be prevention, ideally. Prioritize fueling adequately, always. Track your cycle. It's a vital health sign. Use that 10% rule for increasing training gradually. And take those 1-2 rest days seriously every week. Recovery, if you need it, isn't failing. It's actually the ultimate investment in your body's ability to keep supporting you long term.
And this really brings up a bigger, maybe uncomfortable question for the whole sports world. Coaches, parents, athletes themselves need to think about this. If achieving success in certain sports often seems to require behaviors like chronic energy restriction that we know can lead to permanent damage like osteoporosis in young women, then is the current culture really promoting health and longevity? Or is it just maximizing short-term performance at a really steep, sometimes irreversible long-term cost? Something to definitely think about next time you hear someone brush off a missing period as normal for an athlete.